No, you're good. All right, folks, and we are live. Hello, hello. Thank y'all for being here. I'm Steve, K5ATA, and today we have a special guest, Dr. Tamitha Skov. Dr. Skov, hello. You have to wave hi to the peeps.
Hi. I'm waving hi to the peeps.
Thank y'all for being here. We also have Ham Radio Dude.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
And Le Smoking Ape, or the Ape.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing?
Gonna skip a lot of the beginning of the stream kind of stuff because we have got a full hour and we have a hard stop at 8 o'clock because Ham Nation's coming up next. But all those links down below, there are tons of shout outs I need to make for folks that have sent Padawan stuff in the last week or two. I'm not forgetting you. I promise I'll get you next week. I don't want to take away from our time with Dr. Skov tonight, but any of those links down below definitely help support the Padawans. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and if you're not subscribed to any of these other three folks' channels, make sure you hit that as well. So one other thing, as far as the typical dancing that we do, we're still going to dance. Don't get us wrong. And we're working on Dr. Skov. We're not quite there yet. Y'all might have to help me convince her. But we are still going to dance, but we're not going to dance in the middle of like a segment where she's explaining a solar eruption or something like that, because we would just hate to ruin a great eruption with our bad dancing.
Scientific stuff.
Yeah, all that scientific stuff.
I'll just make them act it out. I'll make them act it out. This is how the eruption opened up the field.
So, don't feel bad if you throw a super chat up there, because we definitely appreciate it, and we don't immediately dance up. There's our first one. So, and apes. All right, Dr. T, we're going to have to go ahead and show you how this works before we get started. So hit it, ape.
Okay.
See, it's not that hard. So, and
I feel silly. I'm apologizing in advance, Tamitha.
And right now she's thinking, what in the world?
They didn't want to. That's exactly right. They didn't demonstrate this. This was their secret weapon. They get me on before they show me how it really works. So
now, I told
now how many
you.
of these are we going to get?
I told you probably several.
It's how I'm getting all my subs on my YouTube channel.
So
it's my dancing.
All right, so Dr. T, good to have you. Thank you for being here. I know your schedule is ridiculously busy, so I do appreciate you taking the time out to join us tonight. Or I guess this afternoon for you over there in Six Land.
Yeah, exactly. I'm delighted to be here with you guys.
So, everybody gets to see you with your solar predictions and your space weather stuff, but not everybody kind of gets to figure out, what made you, as far as what got you started, what got you interested in science. Keep in mind, everything I do pretty much on this channel, and you and I have talked before, but pretty much everything I do is either geared towards getting kids who I call my Padawans into science and STEM related fields, or towards people who hopefully have some sort of realm of influence, or just to be blunt, to help fund my kids, because it takes money to make the world go around. So if you don't mind, take a minute and explain what got you interested and how some of these people maybe can help others take an interest or have an impact on up and coming scientists, I guess.
Well, how I got started in science and space weather really came from I've always been interested in space. Astronauts. I don't think there's a kid that has been born that wasn't interested in space at some point, right? How many kids say I want to be an astronaut when I grow up by the time they're like 2 or 3 years old? So I think that kind of goes without saying that most kids, at least begin to have some fascination with space early on. Whether or not they develop that fascination or it kind of gets lost among other things is I think part of just of who people are. But my fascination with space never died. And it really came for me, it actually didn't come as like a scientist from that perspective. It actually came from an artist's perspective. I was far more interested in space as an artist than I was really as a scientist at first. And so my journey really began with art, visual art, and reading. I got hooked on sci-fi novels and fantasy and things like that. And before too long, because you have to kind of learn a little bit of physics and stuff as you go through high school, I began to realize that physics was really fascinating, and that a lot of these sci-fi guys got their, the authors like David Brin and Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov and Dan Simmons. A lot of these guys ended up getting their influences, from the world of physics. And as a matter of fact, Arthur C. Clarke, the whole concept of a geosynchronous orbit, he was the first one to postulate that type of orbit would exist. And so it became kind of a natural fit that they kind of worked well together. And when I realized that as I got further into physics, and I realized that the truth really was stranger than fiction, well, then I kind of pushed the sci-fi novels aside and began to pick up textbooks and started learning how unbelievably beautiful and complex the real world was. And so that's really what started my journey into not necessarily getting away from art, but moving to include science as well. And I think that's a critical aspect of a young person's life, irrespective of where they come from, is that they have to realize that if they love art of any kind, and yet they also are drawn to science, you don't have to choose. You really can do both. And I think, the environment that you see me in is a perfect example of that. So I'll pause there to let me catch my breath and let you guys interject.
And well, I think we have a dance too, since you paused, because somebody threw one after that. So hit it, Abe.
Lionel L, thank you for that super chat.
Yeah, thank you, Lionel.
Come on, dog. You can do it.
Yeah, boy.
So.
Oh my Lord. Very cute.
You can't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah. I should find something to dance with. I'll put a mask on or something.
There you go. And folks in the peanut gallery also, if y'all have any questions you would like Dr. T to answer, we will try to get to them all. Throw them out there, and
just do me a favor, and if you have a question,
hi, Andy, by the way,
write question or Q, and then the question I'll copy and paste it. That way I can give it back to Steve Goodgame when we're ready for questions.
So, or you can, I mean, for you two, it's an us thing, so y'all ask away as well. So,
well, did you start studying space in high school, like not just because of coursework or what was in the lessons at school, but because of something that you were interested in, or did that come later?
Yeah, actually, that came later. I mean, I actually came from a really sad kind of growing up. My childhood was awful. I actually ran away from home when I was 17, believe it or not. And my parents had been divorced for a long time, and I kind of was really lost. And so my journey, into science was not only slow, but it was necessary, because I had to grab onto something that was solid and something that made me feel like I was actually doing something with my life. And so that helped me gravitate towards science a little bit. But it really didn't get super intense until I got into college. I have to admit, in high school, I was, I enjoyed the science, and I had teachers that were surprised that I was doing as well as I was doing. But that's probably because back in the day when I was growing up, a lot of women just weren't doing all that well in science, or we were pushed out of it to a great degree. So it was always like a treat when teachers got females that actually were interested in this stuff instead of just trying to get through it. And so luckily I had a few teachers that kind of encouraged me. And so when I got into college, I just kind of continued that course, and it really helped stabilize my life a lot. And then about the same time, I was also discovering music, that I had a desire for music. So I was really a late bloomer, but I was trying to find my way, being, having such a hard kind of growing up. A lot of people might not know that about me, but yeah, I kind of had to put myself through school. And so I was looking for things that would anchor me. And so when I found music, I ended up doing that alongside alongside science, doing that alongside physics. And believe it or not, it's really what kept me sane. Because if I had to just be a scientist and not have music or art with alongside, I would have lost my mind, I'm sure of it. So it was kind of cool in that sense. But yeah, late bloomer, if I have to answer that way.
So you mentioned that, not a lot of females interested in science or teachers and whatnot. And I don't want to make this a whole show on this, but how real as a young lady going into a very male dominated field, especially when you came out of school, how real was the struggle, and what advice do you have to, young ladies that are growing up and they have that interest in science, and what can we tell them to keep them interested and engaged and not discouraged?
Yeah, that can be a really touchy subject, because there's a lot of good people out there, and there's a lot of people that aren't so friendly to females who want to, exercise their mind in these types of arenas. And for me, I think there's two different things. There's always the overt. Let me just put it out there. There's the overt sexism. I mean, it exists, and I think everybody, irrespective of what gender or what religion or where you come from around the world, everybody knows when they see that stuff. And I think to a great degree, we're all recognizing it and getting over it. But the harder part is really this pernicious aspect of this covert side of things, where it's not really so much that people are outwardly saying, women, don't get into this, don't do this type of thing, you're not good enough for this. But there is this undercurrent of women are not as credible. And I think for girls that get into science and they get in the field because they love it and they want to continue, I think what happens is that they start seeing that the boys that are equal to them begin to rise higher and faster. And that is when you are just as good as the boy next to you, and yet everybody's thinking they're more credible or they're better or they're just, and they just rise faster than you do. And yet you're doing the same amount of work. It can be very discouraging if you don't understand what's happening. And I think that's where the pernicious side of things go, is that a lot of the girls, they don't see it. They don't know, because it's kind of subtle. And so I had this really good analogy that came up a long time ago that said, even a blue whale, right, the largest mammal on the planet, even a blue whale cannot thrive in a freshwater lake. And it's true, they will die in a freshwater lake because they weren't designed for it and they weren't nurtured in that environment. The environment was kind of, it was injurious. And I think if women don't recognize that kind of problem exists, then this kind of saltwater, issue can kind of creep into their skin and cause them to leave the field. And so that's really where I think young girls and women need to be encouraged, is that, okay, we've gotten over a lot of humps when it comes to sexism and women's credibility, in these STEM fields. But there's always going to be that undercurrent. Well, not always going to be, but at least in our generation, there's still going to be that undercurrent. And we've just got to keep working toward being that person who sets the example of what could be, right? That begins to work to erode that undercurrent. And I think we'll finally, we will get there. It just takes time. And there's got to be a few of us who are willing to kind of step in the muck and deal with, some of these issues for maybe another generation before these kind of things become not an issue at all.
I was going to say, one of the things, I'm a little starstruck. Like, I watch you on videos and stuff like that, give your space reports, and I'm just a little nervous, but don't normally get nervous. So I'll try to be calm. But
that's bonus points. You made 8 nervous. I'm just saying.
But what I was going to say is that my wife's grandfather, he since passed, but he was one of the lead engineers on the Apollo space missions. And one of the things when we would visit him, he would always show me like the lunar module models and blueprints and all this stuff. And one time he broke out this big book of photographs and he was showing it to me, and all the scientists were all men was odd is they were all sitting around, they're drinking liquor in a lot of these pictures while they're working and smoking cigarettes. But they had a lot of women that worked there, but they were all what they called computers. And they sat in these long rows of tables, and they would just do calculations after calculations. And then they would look for statistical differences in the results of the calculations. And that's how they would plan like trajectory when the Apollo 7 had to, whip around the moon because it got into trouble. But I was always surprised at how they were so segmented, all the women in one room and all the men in another one.
And so a question is, I'm a girl dad, and I'm very glad to be a girl dad. And, my kiddo and we play radio together. We do I'm going through withdrawals because she's stuck I say stuck. She's having the time of her life, but she's in summer college, and I can only see her. I got to see her for 30 minutes for Father's Day, and that's all I was allotted. But, she's got it. She's interested in science and whatnot. So, and I know she's probably listening through her headset while she's supposed to be listening to somebody there, because she looks up to you immensely as well. So is it safe to say to people like my daughter, it's getting better? And we'll just, is it getting? So for those of you, young ladies or people who teach young ladies, and we'll just leave that one there. It's getting better. So don't, keep encouraging those kids. I get to teach a STEM camp right now. And
one thing,
go ahead.
Let me, if I may correct, for the women out there, the young ladies out there who are thinking of doing it, do not be afraid to be a bright light for others, because as you lead, others will follow. And so there are some drawbacks to going ahead and trying to be that bright light right now, but realize the path that you're treading, the machete that you're taking and hacking through the weeds, you are forging a path for other ladies to follow you. And that is so unbelievably important and so very rewarding. So remember, there is an upside.
Yes. And that's the lesson I teach all of my kids. It's whoever you are, whatever gender you are, whatever, be the best that you can be in whatever it is you do, and don't tear anybody else down. And that's kind of, that's all right. So that's kind of serious. So let's move on. We did have a question that's a nice lighthearted one about what your favorite genre of music is, since you're such a musician.
Oh my! Wow! Yikes! I was not ready for that question. Oh, that's a hard one.
I'm hoping it's 80s hair metal.
Oh, good night. No.
Oh.
No. Geez. Okay. Do I have to choose one?
I think you have to choose one.
Right.
You know what? I'll say give us your top three if you got top three on you.
You should be able to narrow it down.
That makes it easier.
Classic jazz, soul, and I'll say indie rock. Those will be my three. Not too far apart from each other. Basically, guitar-based music, if I had to, but I also love electronica. That's actually what I do, is electronica. It's more very world-oriented with polyphonic voices. So strangely enough, the genres that I favor in terms of listening are not always the genres that I favor in terms of writing. So that makes it kind of difficult for me.
Okay. One of the other questions: what made you decide to become a ham? And you've got the cool call sign WX6SWW, and yes. I'm assuming everybody can figure out what that stands for. But if not, why don't you go ahead and kind of explain that, and explain what, when and why did you decide to become a ham?
Well, the reason why I became a ham was I was ham shamed. I mean, this community is fantastic at saying you have to become one of us. And I was ham shamed for 3 years, I believe, before I became a ham. Don Wilbanks discovered me for Ham Nation back in 2015, early 2015, and basically just pinged me on Twitter one day and said, "Hey, I do this show called Ham Nation, and I'd like to run my amateur radio news line, and we would like to include your weather segment." And I said, "Great." I said, "Feel free to take it, and I can have a high res copy if you want, blah, blah, blah." And he said, thanks, we'll show it. And I thought, this is great. I get to be on another show that gets to be, kind of promote space weather and get more people to be space weather ambassadors. At the time, I had no idea what amateur radio even was. And lo and behold, before too long, I was told that the guy who hosted the show was Bob Heil, which for me was like, wait, what? Bob Heil? Wait, quadraphonic sound? Bob? He's a ham radio operator? What is this amateur radio stuff? So that became a, kind of a slow roll of me learning a lot more about what amateur radio is. And between meeting Bob Heil and Tim Duffy and, K3LR and so many others, I began to really realize that ham radio is a fantastic sport, so to speak. And I said, I've got to understand this field, especially because it was so important to space weather. You guys are right on the front lines of space weather. So I realized that if I became a ham radio operator, I would do a much better job, not only interacting with you all, but I would get a better feel for what needs I could fill, what kind of space weather impacts you guys suffered. And so I did. I became a ham radio operator. My original call sign in 2018 was, what was it? KM6UCO. I was teased that it was undercover operator, UCO. And shortly thereafter, I was offered a suggestions for a vanity call. One of my VIPs on my Patreon community, Jerry Ryan, I'll probably get his call sign wrong. KG8, no, I forget. Oh, don't kill me. K8VGL. I forget, Jerry. I'm sorry. I may get your sign wrong. But he offered several different options for a vanity call if I wanted. And one of them really stuck with me. It was Whiskey X-Ray 6, Sierra Whiskey. And the reason for it was WX was weather, right? 6 is where I'm from in LA. And then Sierra Whiskey or Sugar Whiskey, depending upon who says it, is Space Weather Woman. So I tried to think of a better call sign for a technician's license, and I couldn't. I fell in love with that one, and that's what I am. So I'll probably be that one forever, no matter what I do. So, hopefully that answers that question.
I think it does.
Yeah, they ham shame me too all the time, and so I feel you on that one.
Yeah, Abe can't even get his GMRS license, so
I think it's very important for all of us to recognize, and the viewers at home do recognize it because I call them out a lot. Not the viewers, but the people who do it. It seems like everything you do in this hobby, I can't imagine not being licensed at the time, but even when you are licensed, everything you do in the hobby, they'll call you out for. And they just want to shame you because they have nothing better to do, I guess. And I'm calling you out right now.
So that's
yes, yeah, Doctor. I like to get under people's skin.
So
that's, but
you're right though. A lot that tends to be society in general right now. And my daughter and I have had those. By the way, Dr. T, we sometimes chase squirrels. But my daughter has the same. She and I've had many discussions about how nowadays it's the roasting thing. They're into automatically just roasting everybody for everything they do. And it's just some people just if they don't have anything positive to say, then
it's trolling for the sake of what's up.
Yeah, but this was good trolling. This was the ham shaming, not hitting me with a belt, but rather with a wet noodle. This was ham shaming, like, hey, you've got to get your ticket.
Oh, they were pushing you. They were promoting. Okay.
Yes, it was ham shaming in the sense of how can you be serving us space weather forecasts and you are not one of us yet? How is that even possible? That's how they were ham shaming me. So it was ham shaming me in a positive way.
Positive aspect. Well, that's good then. That's good.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And
they still are. When are you going to get your general? When are you going to get on the air? Come on, we got to talk to you on HF. Get off this. Get off of VHF.
Get off the repeater. Right.
Right. So I checked your website and I saw that you do a number of appearances and you post them on the website. Do you regularly attend ham fests?
Oh, the only one I've ever attended is Hamvention, and I've attended that 3 times thanks to Tim Duffy and the Yasmi Foundation, and Ward Silver and that whole crew. And every other year I go to Hamvention, and I oftentimes will teach at Contest University. I've taught twice. So I was there in 2015 and 2017 and then 2019 before everything went virtual. And I've been once again shamed into needing to go to Huntsville. That's probably the next one I'll go to. But I have to
we were going to go there because
I have to find the time to do that.
We can make the time. Just if you'll send me your calendar, I can clear it for you.
I'm sure
that's not a problem. We can get that cleared up. Another question, and I want to dazzle them with. I see a nice green screen, and most people don't get to see you in this format of you.
No,
just kind of chilling and seeing your studio. But we're going to see if we can get you up in front of the green screen here in a minute, and because there have been a ton of questions come in about what does the weather prediction look like for field day, and what's the most important element of solar data. Several people are asking these questions. So here after this next one, if it's okay with you, see if we can't throw you in front of the green screen and you can razzle dazzle some folks. Only
if people want to see you dance though.
There you go.
I got you to dance the eruptions, right? So if the big eruptions occur,
all right.
You guys got to.
Ben's throwing it down.
Visual aid.
You don't have to ask twice here. I'm in.
So. All right. So, and you and I have talked about this, and then Tio was supposed to be on the stream tonight, and something came up. He's in the chat, but he wasn't able to be in the stream.
He went to
tonight.
a painting party again. This week they were painting self-portraits of himself, so he went to a painting party.
And he's a girl. Cool. He's a girl dad as well.
Is he covered in paint?
Yeah, I think he has a roll around on the mat. He's basically got to make his own picture by rolling on the mat with paint all over him. So good luck to you.
Yeah, he works in oils, but he's covered in acrylics.
Come out like that. That would have been fantastic. That would have been so fun. I would have loved to have seen him that way.
But you and I have talked about this, and he kind of asked to ask this, and he's got a little different spin on it. You and I have talked about, with all the Mars missions and stuff, the importance of radio and how that's going to work. And he went even farther with, moon missions, and he predicts we're going to start mining asteroids and stuff. So how do you see radio? Yeah. How do you see radio playing a role in that?
Okay, I'll answer that in just a sec. I just want to make sure I say hi to Ben, W6EBD. He's a fellow Papasys member. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Hopefully you saw that Geocron talk this past week. That was a really fantastic talk with Patrick. I'm in talks with Patrick about some cool stuff that may be coming up in the future, and I'll make an update to the Papasys repeater network group later on about it. So really cool stuff going on at Papasys right now.
While you explain that real quick, if folks want to start trying to work up, Dr. T said it's going to take some dancing to get her in front of that green screen. So y'all going to have to work on that while she explains this. So hit it, Dr. T. I got you.
Right. So yeah, my mason jar. Those who know I do mini courses, I always drink with a mason jar in there. I thought I'd bring one in just to be consistent. Okay, so the future of radio. Wow, there's so much. In fact, the Geocron folks, they may end up being part of that, but I will say that for a future discussion. But I will say right away regarding weather here on Earth and the ionosphere here on Earth, the upper atmosphere where we all do skywave, right? We rely on that upper atmosphere to be able to do skywave and HF and DXing and all of that. There is no good way right now to do the predictions for that type of forecasting. The ionosphere, the upper atmosphere, is so complicated that any model that we have right now that could even approach trying to predict the way that upper atmosphere is going to be, and the layers and all that kind of thing. Those models are so slow that they could never do it in real time, let alone future time, faster than real time. So predictions right now of the ionospheres are basically out the window. And really what we're kind of locked into are nowcasts. But we don't, up until recently, we really didn't have a great way of doing nowcasting. But now with things like the WhisperNet and, PSK Reporter, right, reverse beacon network, and now even the GPS and the GNSS databases at higher frequencies, higher radio frequencies, we actually are getting to a point where we can start doing nowcasting of ionospheric propagation conditions. But it hasn't been implemented on a wide scale yet, let alone implemented on a scale that where we could actually start impacting how science is done, how future science is done, and how future models are created, and what scientists learn in terms of understanding our upper atmosphere. So here at Earth, that is a huge way how radio, just amateur radio, is going to be of monster use coming in the next decade, or I would say in this new solar cycle. Because there are a lot of scientists already taking note of that. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So what I wanted to ask was, when you were saying that, so a lot of times what people do for predictive analytics is they look at historical patterns and trends. And they say that when these conditions read these numbers, then we can expect this kind of behavior. When you're talking about nowcasting, you're talking about the ability to take a look at real-time analytics and say that this is what we're seeing now, and then give a more accurate prediction. Is that right?
Yes, because what you're talking about prior to that is more like climatology. And it's like saying, you know, instead of looking at what is the weather today, it's like, well, what was the weather last year at this time? And saying, well, then that's what the weather is going to be like today, because last year at this time, or over the last few years, we average it, and that's what we're going to say that's what our weather is. At the moment, that's about how well we can do with the ionosphere, weather, so to speak. But that ends up really not being useful on a day-to-day because of the variability that's involved. That's why you can't really look at some of these old climatological models and expect them to tell you what the ionosphere is going to do on any given day. Not to mention, weather affects the ionosphere from below, and of course space weather affects it from above. So you get this, basically the ionosphere, the part of the upper atmosphere that we care about as amateur radio operators, it's the cream filling in an Oreo cookie, where the wafer on top is the space weather, the wafer on bottom is the terrestrial weather, and it's squeezing from both sides and squishing this Oreo cream filling, which is the middle. So you never know what that is going to be like on any given day, because there's just so much variability for both from above and from below. So that's going to change, I think, and amateur radio is going to really help in that sense. So that's one thing. And then, of course, there's all this off-world stuff that we're doing, right? I'm sure everybody's heard of the Artemis generation or the Mars generation. Have you guys heard those terms being thrown about?
Yeah.
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 Mars, not so much Artemis, right?
Right, but okay. Well, Artemis, of course, is the Artemis is the mission to the moon, right? And that's how we're learning how to get off world so that we can build a Martian colony. So we're kind of understanding how to do the Mars thing by going first to the moon. A few decades ago, it was called Spiral 1, 2, and 3. Now it's the Mars generation and Artemis and all these things. And Elon Musk, of course, has made it so that that's like his sole focus with everything he's doing. But the thing is that when we finally get to Mars, any colony that we set up over there is going to be even more space weather susceptible than anything here on Earth, because the Martian atmosphere is much more tenuous and much more susceptible to space weather events. In fact, radiation storms from the sun will actually penetrate all the way to the surface, and that means that during inclement space weather, the entire Martian atmosphere goes opaque to radio propagation. It basically turns off. So even if you had a constellation of satellites above you, you couldn't get radio signals in or out through that atmosphere during inclement space weather. And really, there's nobody who knows this kind of stuff better and knows how space weather affects radio propagation. Nobody knows it better than amateur radio operators here on Earth. So how's this to blow your mind? The idea that Earth amateur radio operators, you guys are the Elmers to the Mars generation. No truer words have ever been said, because we're going to have to learn how to do amateur radio propagation, over the horizon radio communications, all over again on another planet.
So when you talk about the inability to get radio signals in and out of Mars, though, but the lunar rover is controlled via radio, correct?
The Mars
yeah,
rover.
But that's line of sight,
I'm
right?
sorry. The Mars rover. I'm apologizing.
I'm just going to say, now you've got ape
Yes.
apologizing. That's
So
that doesn't happen.
What frequency? I don't know. Do we know what frequencies the Mars rover operates on?
I don't know the frequencies offhand, but the radio frequencies are for let's say skywave propagation will be different. But remember, they're not communicating with Curiosity or any of the rovers that are up there, Perseverance, none of that. Those communications are not being done during inclement space weather. Anytime, as a matter of fact, Curiosity, which has its own Twitter feed, for goodness sake, oftentimes tweets that when there's a solar storm coming, it shuts itself down and it hunkers down, turns all its systems off because it's actually getting slammed by radiation. So we've actually learned a lot about radiation storms and space weather from Curiosity because it actually has a radiation detector on board.
No, that's really interesting because like I've seen where they'll say that the rover has been inactive for X amount of days, but I never equated that to space weather and radiation. I'm always like, did it break? Did it fall? Did it fall down? That kind of stuff.
No.
All right.
A lot of times they shut it down on purpose. Yep, for that exact reason.
So, Dr. Skov, do you think we can get you in front of the green screen to explain, to educate a few of us on some scientifical... Yeah, we need some educational experience today. And if it's not too much trouble, do you mind throwing it? Can you throw it up there real quick and just kind of give it a go?
Throw this up there?
Oh, there she goes.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to go walk over here. I'm going to educate people.
Steve, make her full screen.
Yeah, I'm fixing to. Let's see. All right, it's all you, Doc.
I just want to point out, I'm not the only one who drinks out of a mason jar, everybody. Awesome.
Oops. Who drinks out of a mason jar?
I do.
The dude.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes,
and I'm just going to point out while she's getting started, there may not be a better time to try to get her to dance. So you might want to throw those in there. So see what we can make happen.
Oh, come on. That was a low blow. That is not. No,
let me get through
this first.
Giving the opportunity.
Now that's ham shaming in a.
That's dance shaming. That's not ham shaming.
That's dance shaming. Okay. So let's see. What should how long do you guys want me to talk?
Well,
regarding,
first, I had sent you that graphic of the chart that everybody always looks at and nobody understands that just says, 20 meters is open and closed. Can we pull that up and kind of go through it first? Just several people have asked, there you go.
Pull that up. Hang on 1 second. Let me do one of LISIRD. I'm going to pull up solar flux too here in a minute.
This is how
I'm fine if you go for a couple hours.
Yeah, we'll just kind of we'll just tell Josh. We'll tell Josh.
Get mad. No, don't do that. Oh goodness, I'll be in trouble. Okay, so what we've done, that they've asked me to pull up QRZ. So this is probably something that a lot of people use. Now, granted, there are a lot of different flavors of this, right? So sometimes you're actually looking at these and they're they go way down. They've got like sporadic E and all this kind of stuff for VHF and meteor scatter, and there's a lot of more stuff than this. Also know that Paul, I think it is, whose data this is, NONBH, he's in the process of updating them. There's some stuff here that is completely out of use. For example, and I'll just point to it right away, the 304 angstroms, see this 304A? That's 304 angstroms on Eve. So he has managed to update this one, good thing. A couple of them will say at SEM, set the SEM instrument on SOHO. I think it was on, was it on SOHO or was it on GOES? I forget where the SEM instrument was located, but if you see this saying SEM, SEM instead of Eve, it's not working. So what he's looking for in this particular wavelength here of light is the amount of extreme ultraviolet that is hitting our upper atmosphere and affecting mainly the F layer. So that's what they're looking at. And I think really what you need to look for is looking at big changes. So when you see this number go sky high in a short period of time, that's really when you're going to see the F layer get affected, and it may be getting better or getting worse. It's hard to say, but know that this 304 angstrom number only matters on the day side of Earth, not the night side. Okay, so I'm going to just mention that right away, just because that's one of the biggest things that has yet to be kind of updated. All right, so let's talk from the top down.
Sounds good.
SFI, that's solar flux, and I'll show you solar flux. I believe that's the solar flux index. 79, yeah, I think it's set. I thought it was a little bit higher than that right now, but we'll take a look. I'll show you Penticton in a short bit, which is actually a plot of the daily solar flux, so you can get a better idea. So here is the solar flux. So we're sitting in the marginal range. Anything above about 70 is the marginal range. Anything above about 90, 95 is getting into the good range. So we're creeping up, thank goodness, because solar minimum, we were in this like high 60s. So you can see we're continuing to creep up. Sunspot number, this is probably the smooth number because right now I think we only have one sunspot on the Earth facing disk, and this says 12. So this is a monthly smoothed number. That's why you got to be careful when you look at that. But it's showing that we are not spotless, at least. That's good. The A index, unless you're doing climatology, the A index is something you should ignore. Climatology doesn't really work for ham radio. I can't stand the fact that this number is used in ham radio. It really should be ignored because all this is simply the KP index averaged over a day, right? First of all, the KP index, which you're going to see right here, K equals 1. That's the K index. And the P means planetary, so that's what PLNT or Y is. That K index, it's a global index. And it really works much better for mid-latitudes than at high latitudes. If you're a high-latitude amateur radio operator, the K index probably means very little to you. If you're mid-latitudes, like in the United States, great. It works for you to some degree. It's a 3-hour averaged index, and basically what it indicates is how rattled the Earth's magnetic shield is. So if you see this K go up to, let's say, 4, okay, you could probably start having issues. Well, not start having issues. You've probably had issues for about 3 hours because this is upgraded or updated every 3 hours. And by the time you first notice it, you're already 3 hours into the disturbance. So K isn't necessarily my favorite index either. The best index to look at, if you're going to look at K indices, look at a local magnetometer around your area. You can have a local K index of 7, and the planetary index, which is averaged all around the mid-latitudes of the globe, will be 3, or 4. So it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what the conditions are in your locale, right, in your local area. A lot of people, that's a big misnomer. A lot of people like to believe that space weather is just a global phenomenon, but it really isn't. There are global parts of it, right? Because you have the sun launching these massive things at you. That is a global kind of thing, because when it hits Earth, it's going to hit Earth. But the impacts of space weather can be local, just like weather. So it really depends upon the kind of phenomena that you're looking at as to where it hits and how long-lasting those impacts are. And it really does matter what latitude and what local time you're at. So some of these numbers can be extremely misleading if you don't know where on the planet these numbers came from, right? And what they're talking about. PTN flux, that's proton flux. Okay, why you need to see the proton flux for, and I don't think this is even energetic proton flux. I think this is just basically helping you understand the D layer, both the proton flux and the electron flux. Where you need to watch these for differences, for impacts for you, would be if the numbers change rapidly. So if these numbers are only updated once a day, it's not going to help you all that much.
That flux will get you every time.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking around.
What the flux are you talking about? Okay, so so now the aurora. All right, this N1.99 is always that right now. Paul has yet to update this. He says this is going to go away. This was when he actually used to do this aurora number as a scale from 1 to 10, and so he had to scale it. Really what he's reporting now, I think he is already starting to report it, he's reporting aurora in gigawatts. Right now it's at 1 because there's basically no aurora, but this is probably coming straight from the ovation model. For northern hemisphere, I would say anything above about 30, 35 gigawatts. So if this number goes from 1, it goes to 35. You might start getting auroral propagation around mid-latitudes. If you're up to 50, you'll definitely get auroral propagation, no problem. Anything above that, if you get to 100, step out of your ham shack and look at the sky, Because if this gets to about 100, there might be aurora above you, easily into the United States. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what that is. The latitude, of course, it'll tell you the latitude, how far down the aurora is coming. This is most likely a conservative estimate, because we're learning that a lot of the models that we have with aurora really underestimate how visible the aurora is on the planet. Thanks to social media, there are a lot more field reporters out there that are actually showing us how far the aurora reaches. And scientists have actually published papers on this now. Okay, so then BZ, that's how far southward the field is pointing. The bigger this gets, the more chance for a geomagnetic storm, the Earth responding, the Earth's magnetic shield to respond, and then of course K will go up. So really, if you want to look at this, if you see a negative number, because I'm sure it says negative, that's when you perk up your ears. If you see a -5 or high or below, right, -5, -6 on the way down, then really perk up your ears and take a look at this. This number here is the solar wind speed. If this is a rule of thumb, if this is below 5, so below -5, right, -5 or lower, and the solar wind speed is 400 or higher, you've got a geomagnetic storm if it lasts, okay? You'll start noticing propagation issues on the radio long before this rises, okay? Because this is real-time data, and it's getting it from our upstream monitors. Now, moving down here really fast, and I'll just do this quickly. This, to me, is something that you probably can't pay attention to. Why? Because where is it telling you this stuff is, right? I mean, it's saying day or night, what? The entire globe, the entire day side of Earth, the 80 to 40 meter band is fair. The entire night side of the globe, 80 meter to 40 meters is good. I doubt it. Go down to low latitudes and you'll find that the equatorial anomaly will totally make 80 and 40 not propagate at all, right? It really depends upon where you are, what latitude you're at. So these kind of conditions, if you've ever watched this stuff and it doesn't seem to concert with where you are, it's because your local effects are taking over, where this is just not, it's not robust enough to give you, space weather is not a global phenomenon when it comes to radio propagation, right? It would be like saying, well, because it's raining in Southern California, it's obviously raining in Chicago. No, no one would look at that and say, oh yeah, of course it is. Of course it's raining. If it's raining in Milwaukee, it's going to be raining in Wisconsin. No, not true. No one questions that. So why would we think that this is okay, right? Radio propagation is fair in one locale doesn't mean it's going to be fair in another. So just be aware of that. Geomagnetic field, this is essentially the same kind of thing that we're talking about here. Where is how rattled is the Earth's magnetic shield? It's just basically telling you in words whether or not we're having a storm. And if we've got a busy or noisy geomagnetic field, then we're going to be, having issues with radio propagation, mainly on Earth's night side and on 6 meters and 10 meters mainly. And then the noise level, again, where MUF, the maximum usable frequency, they're talking about Boulder. I think this says no repeater, so they don't have a repeater right now that they're pinging, maybe no ionosonde or something that they're trying to look at. I don't know if that's going to be updated or not. And then solar flare probability is just how active are the sunspots on the Earth-facing disk. Right now they say there's only a 9% chance, and that's going to change. That'll probably go up in the next couple of days because of the active regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view here shortly. So hopefully that helps.
So we all know you've got a picture of the sun somewhere that you can throw up there and show us what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be you if you didn't have the sun.
I don't have a picture.
Right,
I have a movie. I have a movie of the sun.
That's even more better to be grammatical.
Is that more better?
So.
Yeah. So here's region 2833. Whoops, I'm looking at you guys looking at your feed to watch me here. So if I look like a drunken sailor doing this, it's just because I'm trying to get to the right place on the green screen. That is region 2833, and it's been pretty quiet. That's the reason why we're saying 9% a chance of a solar flare right now. We're really not having any activity from this region. Last time this region rotated into Earth view, though, it gave us some really good gave us quite a show, gave us actually some decent solar storms too. We actually had multiple solar flares and solar storms from this region. But this time it's going to be pretty quiet as it rotates off of the Earth-facing disk. And then really all eyes for us are on, there's 2 regions that are rotating into Earth view. You can see one down here in the south. You don't see the region, you just see the bright area. And then there's one in the north, which hopefully the movie just reset, but you'll see it again, and you'll see it launch a big solar storm.
Yeah, I caught that. That was pretty cool. Here it goes.
Yeah, that region is going to be rotating into Earth view, and it gave us, with this solar storm that was launched, we actually got a C, I think it was a C39 flare, I can't remember. So only a C-class flare, but it was probably larger than that the solar flare that was associated with it. Let's see if I can see it go off here. Hold on. Boom, right there. Really nice. And so that, the reason why it was only a C-class flare was likely because it was behind the limb yet, so behind the edge of the sun. And so this may be an M flare player. It's hard to tell. We won't be able to tell for the next day or two. And when it launches big stuff like this, sometimes that causes the whole region to reconfigure and go quiet for a while. So who knows, maybe it'll stay quiet over the course of field day, the next few days before it begins to build up again. And that would be nice, because what we want from this region is we want the solar flux, right? We want the solar flux to give us some decent boost in propagation over the weekend, but we don't necessarily want radio blackouts. So I can't say that right now we have no chance for radio blackouts. There is a chance because we do have this region that is rotating into Earth view, but I'll have a better feel for it probably tomorrow, because I think we'll actually see the sunspot that's causing all this, and we'll see how stable it is. But we have to look at it and get a good look to know.
Okay, so right now you dropped the F-bomb, field day, and so we don't really have.
Thinking, no, I didn't.
The apes off camera laughing at that one, but okay, so we can't really make that prediction yet. You're saying because it's just not quite turned all the way towards us. So where can folks? Because that's one of the questions that people are asking is, this is tell everybody where they can find more of you. We've posted your website in the link, and I'll have it in the description. You have a YouTube channel. How often do you explain? Go over a lot of people in here. Are some of your peeps there.
So I will talk to of course, people can go to Patreon and find me there. I'll just show on Twitter. I will probably post something on Twitter. Here's my Space Weather Woman Twitter feed. You can find me on Twitter at, just look for @Tamitha Skov. You can also find me on my website, spaceweatherwoman.com. I am also located on Patreon and on YouTube. Really, it's easy to just Google me, but I have to ask my Patreon folks if they will be willing to let me do the forecast live, just because I'm going to do an informal forecast on Friday morning. And if they are amenable to it, what I'll do is I will end up having it be live on YouTube as well, out in the open for anyone who wants to tune in, so they can catch an informal forecast, because I know it's such a big weekend for everyone.
It is. But, Ape inhaled, so he's got something.
Just tell him I said it was cool. They'll be fine with it.
Yeah, they'll be okay. And Ham Radio dude just threw the link to your Patreon on there, and I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all, go ahead and head over there. If you don't support, I mean, all of us look at her data all the time, and it's Patreon is a much more, trying to think of how to say this, fiscally friendlier way to support her than YouTube super chats. I mean, we all love the super chats, don't get me wrong, but head over to Patreon and help her out. And she does all this for everybody. So all right, so dude, we've got a few minutes for a couple of those questions. See how many we can rail through here.
A lot of them were answered, to be honest with you. Yeah. A lot of them were answered.
Let us all get back into
to be fair.
That's why I kind of wanted to make sure we got through this first, because tons of questions coming up about how to read and what which elements are important and which aren't. So
one of the things that I see here, which is because a lot of the scientific questions were answered. I think you mentioned solar cycle 25. We're just not quite sure yet. And you talked about we're not sure about field day as well. I guess the question I'm going to go to is, what's your favorite way to combine your art interest with your scientific interest?
what is my favorite way? Oh my goodness. Strangely enough, probably doing the forecast, because the sun gives off so much eye candy that it allows me to scratch that artistic itch, in video. But I'm also working on doing some documentaries and some new educational materials too that allow me to do a lot of other stuff. And that will probably end up, when I'm ready to really work on I don't want to say promoting that, but actually shooting that. It's going to involve a lot of people in the community, and it's also going to bring in musical elements and artistic elements as well. So that's what's going to be very, very cool. And there's my husband. He's going to kick me off. It's time for him to come on. Whoops. Hold on. It's time for me to kick him, or kick me off of here, so that he can do his whole thing in comedy, because he's got to do his own comedy thing. So
does he have is it a YouTube channel for his comedy? What do we have going for him?
He is LA Connection Comedy Theater, believe it or not. And he's been doing it for how many years, Kent? 45 now? 45 years.
Chairs over here now.
He's taught Hank Azaria, he's taught Will Ferrell, Matthew Perry. He's very well known in the comedy world, the improv comedy world. So he's about to teach an online class right now. So, and yes, he's on YouTube. It's not, he's got a real theater, but he also, in this case, he's teaching online. So he's gonna display the studio now.
He's got his YouTube, and if we'll try to dig him up, and if not, email me his YouTube channel. We'll throw it in the description as well. So
yeah, it's LAC Comedy, and actually all of the shows that you see, I actually edit for him. So I'm actually their live behind the scenes editor for all the live shows that they do.
See, and for those of you
on the side, believe it or not.
I hope you get a check for that.
Yeah, he does. He takes care of me.
Okay. And so for those of we're going to go ahead and let you off, because I know he's getting his stuff set up. Dr. T, thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you, yeah.
And we never did get you to never did get you to dance. One quick one.
No, that's true. No. Now I got to dance to get off this. Just have me back sometime.
I definitely will.
Dances and say goodbye. Okay, guys.
All right. Take care. And
thank you very much. It's been great.
And folks, we appreciate everybody being here. Remember, we're heading over to Hamvention. Woo! Sorry, I'm dreaming now.
Too much coffee.
Dude, I killed an entire pot during this.
Ham Nation starts now, ladies and gentlemen. Go over there. Check them out.
Head over to Ham Nation. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats and all the support of the Padawans. And we appreciate it. Y'all take care, and we hope to see you on the air. 7-3.